The January 30th, 2013 meeting of the Ways and Means Committee will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Andrews? Mr. Antelli? Here. Mr. Baroth? Here. Mr. Daniele? Here. Mr. Gamina? Here. Mr. Haney is excused. Mr. Hanna? Here. Ms. Kaylee? Here. Mr. McCann? Here. Mr. Tucciarello? Here. Chairman Yolovich?
Here. Well, welcome to the 2013 version of the Ways and Means Committee. We have a new member, and I'd like to welcome Josh Baroth to the Ways and Means Committee. I'm sure that Mr. Baroth will add to the dialogue, no doubt in my mind. I certainly did. The next item is the approval of minutes. You have the minutes from the December 19th, 2012 meeting before you in your folder. They will stand approved unless the clerk is notified of any changes by the end of the day. Next item is new business. Madam Clerk. Oh, I apologize. How'd I miss it? I missed the public forum. I guess I'm getting out of... I was trying to get through this a little quicker. Are there any speakers signed up?
There are 3 speakers this evening, and when I call your name, please come forward and address the committee with your remarks. You will have 2 minutes in which to address the committee, and we ask that you kindly conclude your remarks when the timer sounds. Our first speaker will be Gilbert Wynn. Please come forward. You may hand them to me and I'll distribute them. Thank you. Yes, right at the podium. Go right ahead.
Thank you. My name is Gilbert Wynn from Wynn Companies. I'm here to provide you with important information to consider as part of the ongoing process to select Monroe Community College's downtown campus. Following the December 11th county resolution approving funding for an improved permanent campus, we are encouraged to see the county's commitment to exploring multiple options that would save taxpayers money and still result in a great community for students. We were surprised that votes to approve Kodak purchase was scheduled less than 2 months from that vote. So we're here today to publicly announce our new proposal because we did not have time to sit down individually with people. Our new proposal has been diligently worked on since that vote and has resulted in a $57 million price all in for the new downtown campus. This represents $18 million savings from the proposed Kodak campus. We want to be crystal clear as to the costs and structure of this new Sibley campus proposal. It does not contemplate tax credits and therefore can result in the immediate sale to MCC or in the county of any portion of the Sibley building that it wishes. Based on our analysis, the Wynn Companies can deliver the MCC campus for this $18 million less price by efficiently improving the existing spaces within the current campus while expanding with new construction in other vacant areas of the building. For this $57 million price, the Sibley building can meet or exceed every single criteria of Kodak in the college's site selection criteria, including 275,000 square feet of campus, a dedicated MCC entrance and lobby, and separated utilities. All new heating and cooling systems. Much more parking than at Kodak, 1,700 covered spaces versus 439 uncovered spaces at Kodak. A new addition of 100 dedicated underground parking spaces will be provided to MCC at no additional cost for staff and employees. As a private, well-capitalized developer, Wynn Companies is committed to working with our local general contractor, DeMarco Constructors, to guarantee this maximum development price up front. This approach eliminates the prospect of surprising taxpayers later by asking them to foot overruns on a publicly bid project. Because overruns on an MCC campus would be paid solely by the county and not by SUNY, this is an important guarantee. We also stand ready to collaborate in this design process with MCC leaders and students. Finally, given the $18 million of savings to the taxpayer, we respectfully request that this vote be tabled so that further study and transparency can be brought to this process as this new proposal is considered. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Joseph Eddy. No? Okay. And our last speaker is Garth Lowenguth.
Hello, my name is Gar Lowenguth, and I'm a resident of downtown, involved in the Sagamore on East project, and I live at Sagamore on East and involved in Grove Place Neighborhood Association. We welcome MCC, whether it be in any location downtown, because we're glad to have the students as a part of our community, and we think it's good. We also, I've been following this, I've met with Ann Kress as a citizen, just talking about things, and various people involved, and the WIN people involved in the project. So I've seen it from many sides, and I think that the location at the MCC at the Sibley Building will be a fine and a good addition and add to the East End community. We, as people who live downtown, like the congestion and a little bit of the confusion and the mix of people. So if we can keep this at the Main and Clinton area, we're in favor of it. We think it's a good thing. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
This concludes the public forum.
Now we can return to new business. Madam Clerk.
Referral 13-12, authorize a contract.
Moved by Legislator Gamina, seconded by Legislator McCann. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
Referral 13-13, authorization.
Moved by Legislator McCann, seconded by Legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
Referral 13-14, authorize the
Moved
contract.
by Legislator Daniele, seconded by Legislator Tucciarello. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
Referral 13-15, authorize
Moved by Legislator
contracts.
Tucciarello, seconded by Legislator Antelli. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item.
Referral 13-16,
Moved by
authorize.
Legislator Antelli, seconded by Legislator Hannah. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
Referral 13-17,
Moved by
authorize.
Legislator Hannah, seconded by Legislator Gamina. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
Referral 13-18, amend
Moved by
the
Legislator
2000.
Gamina, seconded by Legislator McCann. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Excuse me. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
Referral 13-7, authorize
Moved
federal.
by Legislator McCann, seconded by Legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion? Legislator Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the administration, how much revenue will be generated through these contracts?
Through the chair, for the district attorney's office, in 2002, we brought in revenue in 2012, our income was just over $86,000. For calendar year 2013, it's difficult to project how much revenue would come in with this program. It depends on the size of the seizures that come in.
Thank you very much.
Is there any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
Referral 13-8,
Moved by
acceptance.
Legislator Daniele, seconded by Legislator Tucciarello. Legislator Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the administration, could I just get an idea of how much overtime is paid with this?
Through the chair, Jennifer Curley from the Sheriff's Office. $76,160 will be overtime. 29,090 will be fringes.
Great. Thank you very much.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
Referral 13-9, acceptance
Moved by
of grant.
legislator Tucciarello, seconded by legislator Antali. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
Referral 13-10,
Moved by
acceptance.
legislator Antali, seconded by legislator Hannah. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
Referral 13-11,
Moved by legislator Hannah, seconded by legislator Gamina. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
referral 13-19, amend resolution.
Moved by legislator Gamina, seconded by legislator McCann. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
Referral 13-20.
Moved by legislator McCann, seconded by legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
Referral 13-21,
Moved by
authorize.
legislator Daniele, seconded by legislator Tucciarello. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
Referral 13-22,
Moved by
amend.
legislator Tucciarello, seconded by legislator Antali. Is there any discussion? Legislator Baroth.
Wishing to close actually work.
Okay.
That's in the record. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
Referral 13-23,
Moved by legislator Antali, seconded by legislator Hannah. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
referral 13-24,
Moved by legislator Hannah, seconded by legislator Gamina. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
referral 13-26,
Moved by
increase.
legislator Gamina, seconded by legislator McCann. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
Referral 13-28,
Moved by legislator McCann, seconded by legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
referral 13-30,
Moved by legislator Daniele, seconded by legislator Tucciarello. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
referral 13-32,
Moved by legislator Tucciarello, seconded by legislator Antali. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
referral 13-34,
Moved by legislator Antali, seconded by legislator Hannah. Is there any discussion? Legislator Cayley.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, to administration, this is quite a reduced funding, and I was just going to ask the impact that would have on the numbers served, if any. Thank you.
Through the chair, my name is Dan Condello. I'm with the Department of Human Services. We've seen an increase in our supplemental nutritional assistance program food stamp cases. So we issue more and more benefits automatically, the state does. So this shouldn't adversely affect the numbers served.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
referral 13-35,
Moved by legislator Hannah, second by legislator McCann. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
referral 13-36,
Moved by legislator Gamina, seconded by legislator McCann. Is there any discussion? Legislator Cayley, are you starting to put your hand up there or not? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
referral 13-43,
Moved by legislator McCann, seconded by legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion? Here. Legislator Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're on the MCC referral, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Downtown campus, thank you. I don't know why I can't follow this evening. Just want to thank Dr. Kress and other senior administration in the college for being here tonight to answer some questions, as well as the administration. And I want to thank them for meeting with us earlier this week, as well as last month or the month before. those sessions have been very helpful to have information, so I do appreciate that very much. I do just have a few questions tonight about the proposal, and I guess just to get a better understanding of everything, some of this you've probably already answered, but if you would just indulge me with some questions. The referral says the space that would be purchased was 561,951 square feet. Now that amount includes the parking lots, is that correct?
Sorry. Through the chair, I'm not certain. The actual square feet of the facility is, I believe, 547,000 square feet. So my understanding would be that they're including the parking spaces within that 561, which is a larger figure.
Yes, okay. So then the actual amount of building space is the 547,000 square feet, correct?
Through the chair, this is correct.
Thank you. And then about half of that is that extra space that we've talked a lot about in that building 16, is that correct?
Rather than characterize it as extra space, through the chair, I would say that it is space that we do not see a need for today at current Damon City campus enrollment. With a recognition, I would just add, however, that we are still about 4 years out from actually moving into that facility.
Okay. Thank you. Through the chair, and that space is all contained in one building. Is that building number 16?
Through the chair, yes, at this point.
And through the chair then, and so your plans for building number 16 then are to entirely seal it off, or what will you do with it at this point in time?
Through the chair, we've obviously had many conversations with potential partners. At this point, they were all very tentative. They did involve the county, of course, because the county does own MCC's property and trust for the college. At this point, I would also share, however, that none of these have been able to evolve very far because we don't yet own the property.
Sure. All right, thank you. So assuming you move in there in 4 years and there aren't any firm commitments from anybody else to move into the building 16, then at that point in time, will building 16 just be entirely sealed off?
Through the chair, I guess, I would be hesitant to answer a hypothetical, but what I would say is that the funding that we have from SUNY and I think there was a request for clarification from SUNY, and we did provide that. Mm-hmm. The funding that we have from SUNY today is to renovate the property that we do need today. As SUNY has indicated that in the future, if those additional square feet were spaces that MCC would need, we could apply for funding in the future.
Okay. So through the chair then, so if the space isn't used in the future immediately, it will still have to be maintained, correct?
Through the chair, I think anyone who's been on a tour of the Kodak facility knows that Kodak had a process for really sort of, I would use the non-technical term mothballing mm-hmm. space that they're not using today so that they can minimize the costs associated with it. But I would also emphasize that since we have not been able to come to any conclusion with any plans today, it does not necessarily mean that we won't be using that space in the future.
Sure. No, I understand that, and I certainly would hope that, if it makes sense, that the college would be able to expand there. However, if that doesn't happen, then there will still be costs that the college will bear and the county for maintaining that space, correct? For heating and chilling, is that true?
Through the chair, I can't speak to the specific cost, but what I would say is that when we evaluated the Kodak property and presented those figures to the board, and when I say we, it wasn't just MCC, we did engage third parties to do that as well. We actually found that the ongoing operational cost of the Kodak property, even though it was more square feet, was essentially the same as the operating cost for smaller square feet at, for example, the Sibley building.
Thank you. So then so you feel there won't be then any additional heating or cooling costs for maintaining that space?
Through the chair, yes, we're not concerned about that.
Okay, thank you. I guess it would be helpful at this point if you could walk me through the actual costs for this program or for this project. I know we're being asked to authorize the spending for the $2.99 million to purchase the Kodak building. What is the total cost of the project?
Through the chair, the budget figure that we've been working with in terms of costing out properties, and I would also just, it's difficult to walk through specific costs at this point since there haven't been any RFPs let by the county, but I think the firm ceiling on our budget has always been $72 million inclusive of acquisition costs. And that's been a budget that's really been in place, I believe, since Renaissance Square.
Thank you. So the $72 million then includes the roughly $3 million for the purchase of the building. Is that correct?
Through the chair, correct.
Okay.
Terry, let me stop you a second. It's a new year. It's a new Ways and Means Committee, but all questions, please, will be directed through the chair.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
Thank you for the reminder. Now, does SUNY reimburse 50% of that full $72 million? Through the chair, sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Through the chair, yes. The SUNY language, I believe, is actually that SUNY will reimburse up to 50% of instructional-related costs with the project.
And through the chair, then, that includes the acquisition of the property?
Through the chair, correct.
So through the chair, then, we can count on up to $36 million reimbursement from SUNY for this project total?
Through the chair, assuming that that's what the final budget is.
Thank you. Now, through the chair, I know everything hasn't been authorized yet, but do you have proposals that appear to indicate that it's possible to do this entire project within that $72 million budget?
Through the chair, what I would say is that throughout this entire process, since unfortunately Renaissance Square did not move forward, we did engage a single firm to really do, I think, what one of our trustees referred to as apples-to-apples comparisons across the various sites, so that we felt very comfortable that whatever project was authorized and recommended by the Board of Trustees would come in within that $72 million budget. And I will say there are certainly locations that we looked at that went right through that ceiling. So we took them off the table.
So through the chair, then, at this point in time, you're confident that this entire project can be done within $72 million budget?
Through the chair, yes.
Okay. Through the chair, if there are any cost overruns, then does SUNY reimburse for those?
Through the chair, I'm not probably the person to answer that, but I would say that we do not have a history of cost overruns at MCC, so that's not something that we're anticipating nor something that we're planning for. Our goal and our commitment is to bring this project in at $72 million.
Thank you. Through the chair, then, could I just request an answer to that question on whether or not, if there are any cost overruns, whether or not that portion is reimbursed 50% by SUNY?
Sure.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we'll provide that.
Thank you. Through the chair, then, at this point in time, how much money has been authorized for this project?
Through the chair, when you say authorized, I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, perhaps if we could just go through the timeline of how much bonding has the county legislature authorized for the project, and how much funding has been authorized by the state for this project?
Sure. Through the chair, the bonding resolution was for $72 million. My understanding is, and county budget can speak to this, my understanding is that full $72 million is not coming in the first budget cycle. To date, MCC's project, the downtown campus, has been funded to $25 million by SUNY through the years, and that was in two different funding, I would say, amounts. One's $12 million, one's $13 million. And that, I would add, some of that funding's been sitting there for quite some time waiting for us to draw it down.
Thank you. So the second, through the chair then, the $25 million you referenced by SUNY that's been authorized in two different amounts, that's what's currently been authorized by SUNY for this project, total?
Correct. Through the chair, SUNY is aware that this is a $72 million project, that it will have, obviously, at a 50% reimbursement rate, a $36 million commitment then from SUNY. But at this point, I have to say that given that MCC and Monroe County has not drawn down any part of the $25 million, they're waiting for us to draw that down before authorizing additional funds, which makes a lot of sense, quite frankly.
So through the chair, then, there's still, so what's the gap there that has yet to be authorized by the state?
Through the chair, $11 million. And through the chair, I would add that it's not really a gap because we haven't had any expenditures at this point.
Thank you. And through the chair, then, were you expecting that money to be or when are you expecting that money to be authorized?
Through the chair, we continue to work with SUNY Capital Construction Fund on that. There was an anticipation that it might be authorized in this executive budget, but one of the things that we've been made aware of is that there are issues in the state regarding the debt ceiling and the debt cap, especially with some of the issues downstate involved with Superstorm Sandy. So right now, the state is really looking to minimize additional bonding that it has to do, especially when it doesn't need to do that. And that's the case in this project.
So through the chair then, worst case scenario, those problems don't go away. What happens when we're $11 million short with a project?
Through the chair, I will say that we have all authorization and all assurances from SUNY that this project will be fully funded.
And through the chair then, they're dependent on the state to allocate that money, correct?
Through the chair, there are actually now, I have to say, it's becoming increased. There's more and more of a plethora of opportunities for us to access capital. It's an interesting period of time, probably more than this committee wants to go into. But in addition to what is our standard procedure, there will also be the New York SUNY CUNY 2020 Fund. And then there is also the Regional Economic Development Councils, which will play a certain role in allocating capital to higher education institutions in the region going forward. So we actually, as we go forward, may have more resources to access those funds than we even do today.
Thank you. Through the chair, though, however, if those sources don't materialize, then we're still dependent on the state legislature, I'm assuming, or the governor, or both, probably, to authorize the $11 million for the project?
Through the chair, yes. Over the next 4+ years, we would be dependent on SUNY to work with us to access that additional $11 million. But through the chair, I would also add that one of the things that we have seen, and I think we can see that from the commitment of $25 million at this point, even though MCC has yet to draw it down, that the state is very much committed to this project, as is SUNY.
Thank you. I guess I would just raise some concern about entering into a contract yet where we don't have all the funding secured, certainly. I mean, there are real concerns. I mean, state, I think people say quite frequently, not everything's that predictable with the state and what they're going to do, so I think we just need to be aware of that at this point in time. I mean, what really does happen if you're getting through this project? I mean, assurances are helpful, but sometimes, obviously, it's better to just have that in hand and have those authorizations made versus just waiting for them to hopefully come through in the future.
Through the chair, can I just note that, in fact, we're sort of in the same position with the county. Right now, we have the authorization for $72 million for our campus, but the bonding will not be at $72 million. So, you know, we completely understand why that is, though. You don't want to bond money today that you don't really need, because then you end up paying debt service that you shouldn't have to. So, you know, I think on each side there's a certain level of trust, and I think we feel very confident with SUNY on this.
Okay, thank you. The cost for this project, they are not included in the MCC chargeback, are they, through the chair?
Through the chair, I don't believe that we include debt service, and that's a budget.
Mr. Chairman, Bob Franklin from Department of Finance. MCC debt service is not currently included in the chargeback being referenced.
Thank you. Through the chair, are there any plans to include the debt service in the MCC chargeback?
Mr. Chairman, no plans have been discussed regarding that.
Thank you. Will this county legislature be asked to authorize any additional funding for this in addition to the bonding votes that we'll probably have in December of this year and December of the following year, through the chair?
Mr. Chairman, other than the bonding votes that were referenced by Legislator Andrews, we don't anticipate any other votes by the legislature.
Thank you. I have a couple other questions about the utilities, and I do thank you for the letter from SUNY that you provided to us today. That was helpful. As we have discussed, the plans for the utilities have shifted slightly over the past few months, it appears, although I understand it may not be necessarily a done deal at this point in time. Earlier, the college had planned to go on the Rochester District heating. Now it sounds like you plan to not go in that direction and instead sell steam to Kodak. Can you talk a little bit about that process and what it will entail to start doing that?
Through the chair, as Legislator Andrews noted, this has not been finalized yet. And so those discussions continue, and we'll be moving forward with what turns out to be in the best interest of the college and the county in terms of costs. But when we did assess both options, I have to say that the cost difference between them is not significant. So that's not really, at this point, a material concern for us.
Okay, thank you. I guess if you do decide to go the route, or first of all, when will you decide? Through the chair.
Through the chair, this is part of the negotiating process that the county is engaged in with Kodak, so during that negotiation process.
Thank you. Could I request that the legislature be updated as soon as that decision's been made?
Through the chair, yes.
Thank you. If you decide to go the route of selling steam then to Kodak, as the letter maintains it, then you would become a lightly regulated utility. Would you have to get permission from the Public Services Commission to do so? Through the chair.
Through the chair, yes. Our understanding through due diligence is that is something we would need to receive.
Thank you. Through the chair, can you just speak to what that would be like that process? I mean, is that easy to obtain or not?
Through the chair, our understanding is it's not a difficult process. And because it was a concern, I will say, that we've had all along, so we were very intent on doing some due diligence around that. We've had legal opinion on it, outside legal opinion, and it looks like it is not, I don't want to say it's no big deal, but it's not going to be that onerous.
Thank you. And through the chair then, if you do take ownership of those utilities and decide to maintain them, then have you built into your plan sort of the cost of maintenance and fixing utilities if anything goes? I know they're in great shape now, but what happens in the future if something goes wrong? I mean, it seems like a cost that we would have to bear.
Through the chair, certainly, as part of our due diligence, we did investigate all of those matters. We did, again, have engineering consultants to look at that, to see what would be the cost, not just for MCC to sort of service its own part of that campus, but other parts of the campus. And so we feel very comfortable with that.
All right, thank you. Through the chair, my understanding is that with Kodak occupying that space currently, well, the system was built to obviously give heat to a full structure. So, and Kodak is still there at this point in time. Have you received any assurances from Kodak that they intend to remain at that location for the foreseeable future?
Through the chair, those aren't assurances we've asked for, nor that we have received.
Okay. Through the chair, then, if they were to leave that facility, what do you expect that would do to your heat costs?
Through the chair, and I want to be very careful that I don't cross into territory that is really the domain of our union engineers at the college, but what we've been given to understand is that we can take down certain parts of that plant so that they really are only servicing MCC, so that they're scalable, I guess is the phrase I would use, although I'm sure that's not what they would say.
Okay, great. Just a couple of questions then about the current lease agreement that you have in the Sibley building. If I recall correctly, through the chair, is a 5-year agreement?
Carrie, I don't know as though that's germane to this particular referral.
Just trying to get a sense of the overlap of the timelines.
All right, I'll allow it, but very briefly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Through the chair, yes, we are currently in a 5-year lease. This is the first year of that 5-year lease, and we, in fact, at MCC signed the lease with the anticipation that we would leave at the end of it and occupy the Kodak site, so that we were looking for very little to no overlap. However, we did want to make sure that we would be able to maintain campus operations without any disruption to our students.
Okay, thank you. What's the annual rent payment for that lease through the chair?
Again, I don't know why that's germane to the purchase of the building.
That's related to the budget and the cost of purchasing the building versus paying the lease.
That's a stretch, Gary. I think I'm going to overrule that one.
Overrule it. Okay. So through the chair then, so MCC intends to stay at Sibley through the duration of the entire lease, the next 5 years?
Through the chair, we do not anticipate leaving early, no.
Okay, thank you. And when you do leave, if you move to the Kodak site, then you'll no longer have a rent payment for the Sibley building. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Thank you. And so then, at that point in time, through the chair, I would hope to see that whatever that annual rent payment is would no longer have to be included in MCC's operating budget, and so therefore that budget could drop slightly. Is that your expectation as well, through the chair?
Through the chair, it's difficult to predict what the costs of MCC will be 4.5 or 5 years from today. So certainly that would be something, however, we would take into consideration, and quite frankly, we would expect the county to take into consideration when we came forward with our budget request for that year, that those were reduced costs.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have for at this moment.
Thank you, Gary. Very good questions.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Legislator Cayley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You can't change it yet. I just have a couple of follow-up questions, if I may, through the chair. I know that the utility plant is in good shape. Can you speak, can I have the age of the plant itself? It is, Jim.
Through the chair, I was pushing the button the wrong way. Through the chair, what I can speak to is the fact that our consultant report has indicated that there is about 13 years remaining on the life of that plant.
And thank you. Through the chair, did the consultant indicate going forward what the cost might be to maintain it past that 13-year period, or would that be considered?
Through the chair, I have to admit I don't have that report in front of me. Given the out year that it had, 13 years, I don't know that that's something that we looked at today, because through the chair, I would have to admit, looking at some of the costs we deal with today, it would be difficult to factor in enough escalators and different parameters around it to get any realistic sense for a 13-year figure.
Thank you. And then through the chair, obviously there's no contract in place, and the utility costs, or whether or not MCC is taking over the utility management, is part of that contract. Are you also in talks at the same time with Carestream, or do you anticipate that that contract is going to happen after the fact?
Through the chair, yes, we are in discussions with Carestream.
Thank you. That's it.
Legislator Barat.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, I have a few questions. I'm just going to ask this question. It's a little off topic for me, but it's right germane to the questions about the utility system. And I noticed in the letter from SUNY that it states that MCC has the ability to be a lightly regulated utility. What exactly does lightly regulated mean, as opposed to regular regulations?
Through the chair, that is from an opinion that we received from outside counsel, so can't delve into that further now.
So through the chair to the administration, then lightly regulated could mean just by anything.
Mr. Chairman, my understanding of lightly regulated includes descriptors that there is no annual reporting to the PSC and there is no PSC approval process for rate setting.
Okay, now that was borderline. I let it go, but let's keep it germane to the $3 million.
Fair enough. And through the chair to the administration, why was this referral submitted as a matter of importance and not through the regular time cycle?
Mr. Chairman, we thought it best to submit the referral as soon as negotiations were at an appropriate point where we were prepared to submit this for the legislature's consideration.
Through the chair of the administration, does an appropriate point mean that the negotiations are essentially complete? or close anyhow?
Through the chair, we have reached agreement on the purchase price and the real property to be acquired. The purchase and sale agreement is yet to be negotiated.
Okay, fair enough. Then through the chair of the administration, about the purchase price of $2.9999, et cetera, million, am I correct to assume that all these funds we are currently considering now are coming from the Monroe County? Is that correct? Not SUNY is what I mean.
Through the chair, the acquisition of the property is something that's approved by SUNY. I think one of the things you have in the letter is that that would be a cost that would be reimbursable at the up to 50% rate from SUNY as part of the larger project cost.
Thank you. That was exactly what I wanted to know.
Sure.
And then through the chair, I have a couple follow-up questions regarding some of the responses. It was noted that the 50% reimbursement is up to 50%. Is that set in stone, or could it be lower than 50%?
Through the chair, it's hard to predict the future. I have to say that the up to 50% has been in law all through this process. It's statutory. I think the up to, just to give a sense, is because it has to do with instructionally related properties. So, for example, if there are shared hallways, if they're, those are things that SUNY looks at, and it may not be the full 50%. They do some proration.
Okay, thank you. And then through the chair of the administration, earlier you noted that in regards to a question of usage of the building 16, that we're 4 years out, and therefore things may evolve over time and opportunities may arise. It is your intent that to have a plan in place 4 years from now for the building 16 space, so that it's not empty at that point in time, ideally?
Through the chair, yes. We have no plans today, but certainly by the time that that campus opens, we would anticipate having some plans for those. Just a note, for the record, one of the things we're looking at the fact that over the past decade, MCC's population at the Damon City campus has increased by over 30%, so that's something we want to be sensitive to. The other thing I would note is that certainly that additional space, as I mentioned, it's something we could go back to SUNY for funding for, but we would certainly seek SUNY's input into any sort of ideas that the county had with MCC about using that additional space. We're very sensitive to that.
Thank you. And then through the chair of the administration, as another follow-up question regarding the $11 million, what was referred to as a gap, but in fact you don't necessarily need that money today, but eventually it would be necessary. You mentioned that there was a plethora of funding opportunities out there. With that plethora of SUNY, CUNY Educational Fund and regional development funding plans, are those essentially what you consider to be contingency if for some strange reason that $11 million were not to become available from SUNY?
Through the chair, I think that's a fair characterization. We have, as I said, all assurances from SUNY that these will be capital dollars available to MCC through the regular course as we're anticipating. But the other thing that's always available to us are these additional ways of receiving those dollars. I think now forever I'll be coined as the person who identified the plethora of funds available to SUNY community colleges, which will make my state-operated pals very, very happy with me.
Well, through the chair of the administration, my apologies for pointing that out then. Through the chair of the administration, has anyone at MCC or the MCC planning team or negotiating team looked at the proposal from the wind company that was sent out today?
Now, I don't know as though that's necessarily germane to this this referral.
I could clarify.
I'm going to give you, all right, clarify. I'm going to give you a little rope here. Go ahead.
Thank you, to hang myself upon. Well, essentially, we're making a commitment here for $3 million worth of to purchase a property that we have gone through a long and circuitous route to get to this point. And at this point in time, we have what I believe to be another option that's been brought to light that has raised some significant questions. I just want to know if they have even considered or looked at this particular proposal or not.
It's my understanding they didn't get it till 4:30 this afternoon. Am I pretty correct there?
Through the chair, yes, we did receive that proposal at 4:35 p.m. today.
then, through the chair of the administration, does that then imply that no one has reviewed that document?
Through the chair, what I would say is we have certainly not been able to investigate it fully. But one of the interesting things, because I understood, the cost was lower, and so we did look at it, and what I would just note, and this would give us some pause, and I think, quite frankly, it would give SUNY some pause as well, when we're talking about tonight the referral to acquire the Kodak property, which is about 547,000 square feet, plus parking, for $2.99 million. The acquisition cost, at least in the proposal is at first blush, for far fewer square feet, I think it was around 275,000 square feet at the Sibley building, was $7.6 million. I would say that one of the things that is clear about the SUNY process is that any acquisition cost, any appraisal of that cost has to actually go through SUNY. It's a process that we engaged in with the Kodak site. We had a lot of time for due diligence on all of this. So even just at first blush at 435, I have to say there are things about this proposal that make me a little nervous.
Thank you. And then my final question, and this is just for my own, it may have been asked before, and so my understanding is that the price tag of $2.999 million is deliberately done to avoid going over a certain limit from bankruptcy procedures or getting out of bankruptcy using the judge's discretion. Is that, in fact, the case that the judge makes a decision about whether or not the court approval is necessary or not? Is that known for a fact that $2.99 million is safe from any concerns along the bankruptcy process? If that makes sense. This may have been asked before.
Through the chair, the 2.99 number is a negotiated price.
Through the chair of the administration, negotiate between whom?
Between the county and Kodak. Through the chair, sorry.
Okay, but thank you. Through the chair of the administration, my question is, are we sure that the bankruptcy court is going to find that amount to be low enough that they do not need to apply or give approval?
Through the chair, we have done our due diligence and received an opinion both from Kodak counsel and outside counsel that in fact the purchase price of $2.99 does meet the criteria in the de minimis asset order filed by the bankruptcy court in that bankruptcy matter.
Thank you. And then through the chair of the administration, am I correct to assume that our counsel also reviewed this and is confident that this will not be challenged and that this will go forth?
Through the chair, you have to be careful when you say will not be challenged. Nobody can offer an opinion on that.
But through the chair of the administration, our counsel has, in fact, reviewed this as well, correct?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Legislator Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few more questions and follow-ups. Earlier, we had requested copies of the environmental review. I'm assuming those documents will still be provided.
Mr. Chairman, yes, we will be providing those before the legislature meeting. So should be within the next few days.
Thank you very much. And a couple other questions. Going back to the $25 million that's already been appropriated by SUNY for this purpose, I think you indicated that's been done in two different times, one $12 million and one $13 million. Were those funds specifically allocated for this project through the chair?
Through the chair, there's one portion of those dollars, $13 million, which was allocated for MCC's downtown campus without a specific location assigned to it. The second amount, $12 million, is still titled Renaissance Square. So that is just a pro forma aspect from SUNY working through the legislative process about changing the title on those funds. But it's something that's actually not uncommon.
Okay, thank you. And through the chair, then just following up on that, who would need to authorize the change in that so that that funding is available to be used for the downtown campus?
Through the chair, since that went through the legislative process, we would need the Senate and the Assembly. We would need members to put that forward.
Thank you. So then if I understand that correctly, the $12 million still needs to get authorization from the state legislature in order to be accessed for this project?
Through the chair, yes. The name would need to be changed from Renaissance Square.
Okay. I guess, I think that raises some concerns for me. I wasn't aware of that before. But now we've talked earlier this evening about $11 million that we still don't really have access to. And now there's $12 million that while it's there, we all know, because we talk about it a lot in this room, how difficult it can be to get the state to do things when we need them to do them. So I would have some concerns about going forward at this point in time with a project where we're still waiting. We still need the state to work with us to get $23 million of it. I guess I would just state that at this point in time. But a couple other questions. Through the chair, can you explain again the $72 million price tag and how we feel confident that we can complete this project in that budget? I mean, do we already have proposals from contractors that say that that's doable?
Well, now, that's asked and answered already, I believe. You did ask that question almost exactly the same about 10 minutes ago.
I know I asked a similar question, but I'm not clear because
all right,
I'm not clear how the money,
how
that dollar amount, why we keep using that. I understand it's an old amount, but I'm not clear why we're comfortable in knowing that we can renovate that space for $72 million.
Through the chair, I think the simplest answer is that that's the budget for the project. And so we're committed to bringing in this project at that dollar amount. At the ceiling, that would be the ceiling of this dollar amount. One of the things that we looked at through this process was I would call some broad stroke due diligence, evaluating the suitability of each site and then what it would actually take to bring it up to SUNY guidelines for classroom space and hallway space and those sorts of things. So we feel very confident that we can bring this project in for $72 million.
I'm glad to hear that, certainly, and I hope that that is the case. It just seems like it's based on a feeling of knowing it has to be done and feeling confident that it will be done, but not on specific facts that say this is how it's going to get done for $72 million. And that's another concern that I have with it at this point in time. If I could follow up a little bit about some questions about the Building 16 space, could you just walk me through the chair? Could you just walk me through what would happen what would happen if, for example, a private company came in there and wanted to develop that space and it had nothing to do with MCC?
Through the chair, I'm not really sure how that would be germane to the college. We have in the past, I think the only example I can think of is that part of our property in Henrietta was severed at a certain point from the college, but that then became a county matter.
Okay, thank you. Then through the chair, then perhaps there's some representative of the county at the table. And when that happened before at your Henrietta property, or if that were to happen again here, what interaction or what do we have to do with SUNY because, in fact, they've paid for half the cost of acquiring that full property?
Through the chair, that at this point is total speculation, and at this point we are considering a purchase and acquisition of a property, and there are no plans for that future use.
Yes.
I understand there are no plans at this point in time, at least no specific plans that have been laid out, but it does seem like we're going to have twice as much space as we need, and at some point in time somebody's going to want to do something with that property. So if we're going to authorize the purchase of that entire space, then I feel we ought to have an idea of, we ought to know what would happen if a business went in there, if the county wanted to move a department there. I feel that's very germane to this referral.
You know, I think we're getting into the hypothetical just a little bit here. We're talking about buying the building. We're not talking about what we're going to do with it 5 years from now or 6 years from now as far as extra space is concerned. I understand the first questions about it. I don't necessarily understand this one. If they have an answer over there, fine. If not, I don't think it's...
Through the chair, again, very speculative, but at this point, what I would say is that if there was a use that was not for the college, then we would have to go back to SUNY at that point and they would seek the reimbursement for that portion of the acquisition cost, which is 50% of 50%.
I'm sorry, through the chair. Thank you for that answer, but can you explain the 50% of 50% to me one more time?
Through the chair, Building 16 is approximately 50% of what we're purchasing. And if we were to release that from the college's use, then that would be 50% of the $3 million, and then another 50% reimbursement to SUNY.
Okay, so if I understand correctly then through the chair, Building 16 is $1.5 million. So we're spending $1.5 million to buy space we're not using. And then the rest of the facility we are purchasing is $1.5 million. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that's incorrect. The 2.99 is the negotiated price for all of the square footage that we're purchasing and the parking.
Right, I understand 2.99 is the full negotiated price through the chair. But in the future, if we were to go through this exercise, because Building 16 were purchased by somebody else, I believe you said that 50% of the purchasing cost would then be refunded to SUNY.
Through the chair, again, very speculative, but at this point we would have, at that point, we would have to appraise the property that was being severed, and then it would be based on that. So there are no numbers that we could give you right now at this point.
This has gone far enough. It's not germane to the actual purchase offer. It's strictly speculative, so I'm going to say let's end it right there.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate that. Just one other question, and not on that line, just what is the total property appraised for at this point in time?
Through the chair, the appraised value is $4.6 million.
Okay. Thank you very much. And my last question really is just, at this point in time, given the fact that there are, the funding is not necessarily secure, I would say, not to say that it's not going to come through, but we don't have it in our hands at this moment. And you've been presented with an alternative proposal that comes in at only $57 million instead of the $72 million. At this point, why wouldn't you entertain looking at that proposal?
Through the chair, I would say that I want to go back to the due diligence process that the college has engaged in since the Renaissance Square project ended, which is at this point actually, it's 2 years worth of process. The board went through almost a year's worth of process before recommending the Kodak site. Certainly other folks in the community, including the folks who brought forward the presentation today, had that ability to present their ideas to the Board of Trustees. Since that time, since that recommendation, there's been another year before the bonding resolution. So I guess I would question the notion that this is rushed in any way. If anything, what we hear consistently from our students and from our faculty and staff and from many, many community members is that they've been waiting for this process to end for a long time. We did that due diligence and we have considered the proposals, and that's the reason we're before you today.
Thank you. And when companies responded earlier with ideas about the downtown campus, were they all given the same specs in terms of what sort of plan they should put together? Through the chair?
Through the chair, we used the same site selection criteria that was publicly available for everyone. There was also, as everyone in this community knows, there were years and years of discussion in which the budget was also very publicly available. And through the chair, the last thing I would note is I understand we did get this proposal at 4:35 p.m., so less than 2 hours before this committee hearing began from the Wind Company. The last time we actually received a proposal from the Wind Company that was presented to the Board of Trustees was in October 2011.
Okay, thank you for the additional information. At this point in time, I think I'm going to move to table this referral.
Okay, well, I'm going to say that is out of order because we are not the lead committee. The lead committee approved this last night, so we cannot table it. We have to vote on it.
Mr. Chairman, is there another motion we can make then to have some time to reconsider? Can I move to recommit it?
No.
Could I ask the
We are
parliamentarian
not the
if
lead
there's another
committee. The
procedure?
lead committee approved it last night. We are here to approve it or disapprove it tonight, but the lead committee has jurisdiction. And I've checked that with our attorney beforehand. So if there's no further discussion, all those in favor,
I'd like to explain my vote then,
you
Mr.
certainly
Chairman.
may.
I had hoped it would be possible for us to table this, especially after it's come to light that there are some questions about the funding. There's at least $11 million that hasn't been authorized yet. There's another $12 million that we can't access without the cooperation of the state legislature. Both of those are concerning to me, and I think should be concerning to all legislators this evening. I also I just think for this point in time, and there's also another proposal that, although it came at the very last minute, I understand that certainly. It's cheaper, and I think perhaps could merit some vetting and some examination before we enter into this purchase. And so I had hoped that we would be able to table this to have some further conversation about it. I don't think that everyone in the community was aware that it was going to be coming up in February or coming up today, this week for a vote. It just did come in as a matter of importance. And so at this point, unless I guess at this point in time, I'm going to vote against it and hope that I feel more comfortable with voting for it by full legislature. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Legislator Baroth.
Sorry, I was trying to be polite. Thank you. I actually would like to explain my vote as well, because I woke up this morning after recognizing, a couple of days ago we had a new matter of importance, and that was kind of disturbing to me. Since it is not from a monetary point of view. I mean, we're talking about $3 million on our budget. That's not a totally outrageous amount of money. It's a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, but it's not the sort of money that, believe it or not, a bridge might cost. Things along those lines. However, it's a momentous issue because it is something that has provided a lot of interest and concern, as we've seen in these chambers. We've seen many students, we've seen many community leaders, we've seen professors come and talk about what they want and why they want it, and we've heard many things, good and bad, about the current location and the new location. And I think that, in fact, many questions were answered. I don't think all questions were answered, but then again, as we pointed out, it is an ongoing process, and 4 years is a long time. We're not going to know everything, but we have had discussions. And I would like to recognize the fact that the MCC campus community has, in fact, really stretched itself. Well, maybe it's not, has exerted itself to share information and to meet with both caucuses, and that's been a very refreshing and a nice thing to experience. But recognizing all that, I am concerned about what I consider to be some questionable commitment on the part of the state to completing the financing of this project. And when I say questionable, I mean that we know that sometimes the state does things, and sometimes it says it will do something, and then it waits 10 years, and that's, oh, now we're going to do it, and then we've moved on, and things can happen along those lines. So I'm concerned about that. And I also am concerned about the fact that the Wind Corporation has a new proposal that is not being considered. I recognize it's 4:35 when we received this, but I can assure you as a member of the minority party, I've received many a thing at 4:35 p.m. And had to make votes on those shortly thereafter. It's not a pretty position, but it seems to be a norm around here. But recognizing all that, I'm hopeful that before the full legislature meets to vote on this in the future, we'll actually have additional information regarding the financing, regarding the ability to get this out of the bankruptcy court without challenge, and all those concerns that we raised here today. And then I'll be voting accordingly today on that.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say, let's do a roll call vote.
Ms. Andrews? Mr. Antelli? Mr. Baroth? Mr. Daniele? Yes. Mr. Gamina? Yes. Mr. Haney is excused. Mr. Hanna? Yes. Ms. Cayley? Yes. Mr. McCann? Yes. Mr. Tucciarello? Chairman Yolovich.
Yes.
9-1, motion passes.
Next item, please.
Referral 13-44.
Moved by
acceptance.
Legislator Daniele, seconded by Legislator Tucciarello. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, please.
Referral 13-45, authorize the contract with
Moved by
Strong.
Legislator Tucciarella, seconded by Legislator Antelli. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Is there any unfinished business to come before this committee? Legislator Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A referral I introduced last fall requesting a report from the dependent audit that the county undertook has been referred to the administration. I believe it was supposed to be produced by the end of January, which is a day from now. So I was just asking for a status update when I can expect that report.
Mr. Helfer, can you respond to that?
Mr. Chairman, I've been advised that the report will be provided by the full legislature meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further discussion? There being no further business, the January 30th, 2013 meeting of the Ways and Means Committee stands adjourned. The next meeting of the Ways and Means Committee is scheduled for February 27th, 2013. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.